Aeon Trespass Odyssey. New crowdfunding campaign, Sins of Herakles. What's new? What do you need to know? My thoughts and opinions on it firsthand, as well as an overview for those interested in getting into it now. Is it worth it? What should you get? Where do things stand this time around? Let's go. Let's break it down. So in case you're not familiar with Aeon Trespass Odyssey, Aeon Trespass Odyssey is the boss battler of all boss battlers. It takes Kingdom Death Monster, sets it in a Greek Odyssey filling, and then puts it on a platter for you to digest over a smattering of currently 3, but up to 5 cycles, with Sins of Herakles offering us a new aperitif on what we're going to see. Now, in case you're not familiar with either of those, boss battling in the sense that you are controlling Argonauts and Titans as pilots for big mechs, essentially, if you will, clashing against each other, against monsters that you're either trying to avoid, strip mine, or something else in between as you go on an old, rusty, but expansively fantastic Argo, because that's your ship that you're traversing this world in. So you're managing the ship, you're managing the tech tree, you're managing the characters, you're managing the powers, you're managing the equipment, and everything else in between. But you're not really managing so much a settlement. And that's the big thing that sets it apart from Kingdom Death Monster, which was always the big sort of meh with it for me. You are only taking care of your locale as it travels throughout this world into one of 3 regions. Time-based scenarios, only so much to do during so much time. How are you going to navigate with also enemies lurking around every corner, as well as hot on your heels that will actively chase after you in between sessions in the first place? The unique death type mechanics and brutal combat with Kingdom Death, only done in a more stable, less swingy way, with a very apropos inverse sort of paradigm battle system where the more damage you take, the more you power up. We're going Super Saiyan here, and don't get me started on that, but it's awesome. It's an absolutely fantastic mechanic. As you get more damage, you do more output. High risk, high reward. If you hated Kingdom Death Monster, where if you didn't have armor, you just lost a part of yourself, and there was no recovery, and you were losing survivors left and right, well, this mitigates that and gives you ways to deal with it on a turn-by-turn basis. You're getting damage cards that are going to be boons or curses depending on the level of damage that you're currently at. You're getting the ability to mitigate rerolls as you go along, and you're getting the ability to give tokens that are also going to help not only you, but allies in a fight. And it also gives you a little bit better progressive sense of the battles that Kingdom Death Monster had, in the way that you're not just going to be constantly wiped out because you run across something new you've never seen before. The game doesn't hold your hand, but it also doesn't leave you with an experience that is going to make you grit your teeth because you got to do everything that you just spent the last 8 sessions doing all over again from scratch. So why get this game now? Why should you even be looking at this? What is new in case you are looking at this for the very first time, or if you're one of those people like me who has all of it already, loves it, and is looking at the new stuff? Well, the Sins of Herakles is offering several different departures from the base game. We are getting a 12-region standalone system that's going to have different mechanics than what the base game has brought to that. And already that's going to be a little bit divisive, because some of the things that I've mentioned, some of the things I have not mentioned that make it stand out from other boss battlers, even its predecessor, standing on the shoulders of KDM, it's what also makes it better. And so some of these things I am excited about. Some of these things I'm a little trepidatious about at the same time. Number one, the big change is this is completely non-linear. We had the campaigns, the scenarios, the missions that you were going through having to accomplish under a certain time frame with the original base game. And so it gives you some sense of urgency. It doesn't give you the time or the flexibility to kind of craft it how you may, depending on how you feel about that. Sometimes open world, as this new is going to be described, is a good thing. Sometimes if you're an open world junkie, you love that. But if you're like me, sometimes you need a little bit of direction. Right? Sometimes too open is too much, because it also risks bordering on aimless. Now, the other aspect is because there's no specific timeline, you're going to have annals which are going to be progressive as you go along, but they're not going to be done in the same way. Similarly, get rid of the Argo. We do not have the Argo, as I previously mentioned, your ship to travel out upon, which is going to lead you to have a lack of some of the resources that went along with the fact that it was basically your mobile city, your mobile port in a storm. Pro, well, less to upkeep, less to deal with. Con, you're losing a lot of stuff that was beneficial, and as you travel across the land on foot, it's going to put you in harm's way a lot easier, a lot sooner, and a lot more often from that standpoint. The next aspect to go right along with that is the new exploration deck, because that's going to be also slightly different. They say, though, as a la the tile laying city region map building situation that you find yourself in, it's going to be much more sprawling. As I mentioned previously, not 1, not 2, not 3 sections or regions we saw before. This is going to have 12, and you're going to delve into them differently. Speaking of delving, though, the loot system is also going to be slightly changed, and this is one I have very mixed feelings on. Part of the thing I did not like about Kingdom Death Monster sometimes is if you just, killed a creature, you kind of just got random stuff, random times. You could mitigate it sometimes in some crit aspects, and, Aeon Trespass gives us the same thing. Kill a monster, get these many resources. Crit this part of the monster, animal, whatever, body part, get this specific better thing. And then it became a game within a game, right? And you needed to get this specific thing at this specific time, at this specific part, or otherwise your min-max situation wasn't quite what it was going to be. And I love the fact that Aeon Trespass Odyssey veered from that narrow path that Kingdom Death Monster often found yourself on. And this carcass delving is going to be a little bit different in that sense. Now, the issue is that there's going to be crafting right after the battle. You're grabbing your resources from the BP cards, the primordial wound cards, essentially. The primordial bad guy monster cards, if you're familiar, you're shuffling them into a deck. That's your resource deck. You draw a certain amount of them based on the level, and you just get those resources. So, it's kind of okay. You save the ones over from previous resources, but you're crafting right then and there. So take that for what you will. Now, Chris, you mentioned the delving aspect, and this is where it becomes a little bit more of a press your luck issue. Are you feeling lucky, punk? There's power levels. You go down these power levels. You have to roll and get a certain number on them. If you do, additional bonus, additional resources, additional benefit. When you fail, though, you lose everything you've earned up until that point. High risk, high reward. You also then take a penalty, and not insignificant penalty. So how far are you going to push it in a crap style situation like this? And I'm a little bit trepidatious about this. You're going to get some extra special cores, extra special things that are going to enhance your unique gear in a greater extent. Because let's remember, also in this one, you are not just, like I mentioned, Titans and Argonauts. You are the Bastard offspring of Hercules, and you have godlike power. So you transform into the Titan. You are not piloting the Titan in that sense, which also brings a different dynamic. When you die, you don't just lose the Titan that you were piloting, right? Very rare was it you lose your Argonaut piloting the Titan. But in this case, if you lose and die, well, you're dead. Well, caveat here, because you get reborn in Gaia the Earth, but you need to have seeds that are going to allow you to regrow. Run out of those seeds when you die, well, then you're truly dead. You thought I was going to say something else beginning with an F there, didn't you? But that's the sort of differences that we're seeing so far. How do you feel about that? Some of those mechanics are the core of the original 3 cycles that we have so far. As I say, and oftentimes in other places outside this channel, the enemy of good is better, right? Sometimes trying to make things too good, trying to upgrade things in just another way, just to make it slightly better than this, slightly better, slightly better, slightly better, until you jump the shark. We see that with expansions sometimes in other realms, where the expansion takes the simplicity, the elegance of the base game, and instead of adding and detailing it in a finer degree, like a miniature painter giving the fine aspects of the facial details on a miniature, it just overwhelms and completely drenches out everything that brought the nuance there in the first place. And which is this going to be for you? The other big difference in that same line is staying with the Argonauts, staying with your offspring of Hercules main characters. You are no longer getting the Nemnos abilities, the randomly acquired abilities based off of the narrative campaign that you're acquiring. You are going to start out with abilities of your own that you are going to unlock, that you are given sort of a narrative to go along with. And again, this is the sort of thing where, personally speaking, I felt stronger with this rather than my sample of Kingdoms Forlorn. And I feel like they're starting to blend the two with this of giving more of a character-driven narrative background individually. I worry that there could be too much narrative for those that are trying to have less of that, because Kingdoms Forlorn was heavy on that. I didn't mind it, but it also, comparatively, was not what I looked for. And the lack of it in Aeon Trespass Odyssey was actually quite a relief, because it streamlines portions of those things without feeling like you're losing too much. Because I'm going into this for the action, the mechanisms, the combat, the upgrades, not necessarily the narrative. Are you? Now, these ability cards are going to have several levels, going to have several unlocks that go along with them, but you're going to have the ability to eventually customly load out your character, however you so choose to trick them out, essentially. Passives, synergies, weapon proficiencies, again, borrowing from KDM, borrowing from Kingdoms Forlorn. The other similarity that we see with these forms, these characters, is that the Titans that they are turning into, they are not just your basics. You're going to have asymmetry between them. Are you going to utilize a certain form? Are you going to prefer a certain form? Are you going to hoard a certain form over comparatively to your counterparts? This is not an insignificant change when we talk about price point either. Sins of Hercules, very reasonable, $89. It's going to be 100 plus shipping, easy, said and done, no problems. However, when we start to get to the core, the 3 core, originally the first time around is about $130, right? It's going to be $300. That is one of the biggest massive price swings since KDM. Not even Gloomhaven was that different. That's a massive swing. Also, the all-in to get everything, 4, 5, and the new stuff is going to cost you double that, $647. That's almost an incomparable amount on crowdfunding. Like I said, only the aforementioned Kingdom Death Monster has even approached anything pledge level wise in that degree. So I have a hard time saying, as much as this was my number one game of 2022, for that price point to get everything. You know? Sins of Hercules is going to offer you a core experience. It's a little bit of a shame in a way that they're getting a little bit further away from what's made 1, 2, and 3 so amazing. Because I worry about the people as well. If you're looking at this and going, I just want something palatable and tolerable and something I can swallow at a price point, you know, that we all can afford, and you only get that, and you're left with different mechanics than those who are getting 1, 2, and 3 and thoroughly enjoying it from that aspect, because I can't guarantee with all of these changes that you will love one as much as you will love the other. Again, just because it's an unknown, not because one is better than the other, but your preferences may very well swing one way or the other, and without being able to do both, it's going to be very, very hard to tell if you would prefer one or not at this point, especially if you don't have hands-on already. Now, there will be a tabletop simulator availability during the campaign, they said, for the new Sins demo, if you will. And there's enough gameplay content out there already, myself included, for the original, so you can get a tasting, a smattering of how it's actually going to be. But there's also something to be said of having hands-on that just can't be beat. And I feel the same way. I would be amiss if I didn't include the price point issue in the first place. More than I thought, to be frank with you. But clearly, between prices and probably underpricing the first time around, we're seeing what that truly looks like. Do you love this style of game enough to get this? Or to get all of this? Or to get a significant degree of it? Are you going to do half in the campaign, half in the Pledge Manager? Are you just going to get the small Sins of Hercules and get your 100 or so hours of content out of that and call it good? This is a lifestyle game, folks. No qualms about it. But is it a lifestyle game for you? I have no issue, full transparency, if I had to choose one game for the rest of my life, or one game and never play the other again, Kingdom Death Monster versus Aeon Trespass Odyssey, I have no doubts in my mind to tell you that it's Aeon Trespass Odyssey, day, night, and everything else in between. But that being said, is that enough for you to make a decision in that sense? Just being better than one of the preeminent other games in the same genre and mechanistic approach, is it good enough for you to actually be able to get it to the table? Because the price point, because you require 4 characters managed at once. I have played this primarily solo. It's not impossible. It's very feasibly doable. But the setup, the teardown, like with any of these Oathsworns, Frosthavens, Gloomhavens, are going to not be discounted in the intensity that it takes to routinely want to do that. And so you have to ask yourself, what if this sits on the shelf and gets unplayed? Can I justify spending this much money on something from that aspect as much as I like the idea of it? Because again, the bottom line of it is, if you can't get it played, it doesn't matter how good I think it is or anyone else says it is, right? So there you go. Some brief overview, thoughts, impressions, things for you to think about and to know going into this campaign. Where does that put you? How do you feel about things? Are you more enticed, less enticed? Are you just looking at the small stuff and saying, I'll pass on the rest, or I'll pick it up later if it really appeals? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Have a great freaking fantastic day. See you around. So in case you're not familiar with what Aeon Trespass Odyssey is and you're tuning in, Aeon Trespass Odyssey is a boss battling narrative campaign game. That is why you don't drink during filming. Not alcohol, just carbonated beverages.